welcome to the morning show. We're coming to you today on WJOPLP Newburyport at FM 96.3 on Channel 9 and on Newburyport Community Media's YouTube channel at ncmhub.org. I'm your host, Mary Jacobsen, and today I'm very happy to be able to talk about an upcoming new premiere of a new theatrical work by Josh Faigen, who's here today, that will be shown on this coming weekend, June 22nd and 23rd at 8 p.m. at the chapel at Oak Hill Cemetery on Brown Street. Let me introduce you to the three people who are here today to talk to us about this innovative new work. Joshua Faigen is a resident of Newburyport. He's won numerous national playwriting awards, and he's had plays produced really all over the place, everywhere from Buffalo, Winston-Salem, Boston, New York, Providence, Los Angeles, Portsmouth, as well as our local Newburyport. So Josh, first of all, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Well, theater and performance are something of a family affair for Josh because his spouse, Penny Lazarus, is also here. Penny is a singer, and she's section leader for the altos as well as membership director with the Choral Society. She's also a nationally certified music teacher and a very popular and innovative piano teacher. Penny, thanks for being here.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
And we also have Sally Nutt here. Sally is an actor. She's loved theater, she says, since the third grade, and she's managed to find a stage no matter where life or the Air Force landed her. She's co-chair of the Amesbury Cultural Council, and she's a working actor with SAG-AFTRA. And for 10 years, she's hosted the playwriting group Fardels, Fardels, which is where she met Josh. Sally, welcome and thanks for coming. And does Fardels stand for something?
Fardels is
Fardels.
how we say it.
Yes.
It's from Shakespeare, as best as we know.
Okay. We'll settle for best as we know. But thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Well, Josh, let's start with you. What inspired you to write Aspects?
Well, I have to say that the bottom line inspiration, it was the music itself. I worked, since I began writing for theater, I've always worked with music, and because my background is in music, and over time I've kind of developed what I think of as a process, integrating music and words. And so when I listen, whenever I'm listening to music, which often, believe it or not, happens because we have a dog that I walk every day. So I listen to music, and every once in a while, I'll listen to a piece, and I'll hear words. I'll hear words, or at least a line of dialogue or something, and it doesn't have to do, excuse me, with the type of music, and it doesn't really have to do with the orchestration. It doesn't do anything. Just certain pieces work that way. Certain other music, much other music that I, of course, really love would never work for this. So I hear the piece, and it's just, I can hear the lines that come with it.
Josh.
Yeah. And because I've been working to combine words and music, it's a personal way. It's not. It's not nobody else, as far as I know, does it this way. But because I hear it that way, then I can come back and take the collar off the dog and go upstairs and start thinking again about it. So that's basically where the basic inspiration comes from.
Well, it might be fair to call your dog your muse, then, possibly.
I just don't do it to her face. I don't want her to get swelled head.
Well, that's really, really interesting, Josh, that it just spontaneously started to happen, that the words were coming to you, triggered by the music. So
There's a long history of merging theater and art and music. And I mean, because our earliest musics were sung poetry, if you go all the way back to Homer, for example. And then sung poetry continued heavily in the 19th century with Lieder. German Lieder is really, Schubert and Schumann sung poetry. And then you can take it a little further in the modern period, early 20th century period, with the idea of tone poems. Of course, they didn't have words, but it was music meant to evoke an image. And then there's all this other genre that our own Rena Espaillat practices here in Newburyport called Melopia or Melopia. And that's still a little different from what Josh does, but similar enough. That began as improvisatory. Somebody would just start playing a guitar or a violin, and somebody else would just start speaking lines, rhythms, poetry, and the whole thing would be kind of done in a social aspect in somebody's home. But then formally they do it, Rena's River Poets do that by choosing certain poetry, and then there's music in the background. What Josh does, which I think is pretty unique, the music becomes a character. So, and the words are his own, so unlike a borrowed poetry or poem, they are his own, and the character speaks almost in dialogue with the music. So the music comes up, the actor is silent, then the music goes, back down a little bit if all works with our son who's the sound engineer, and then the actor speaks, but the music never stops.
Interesting. Kind of a continuation of the process you were describing that spontaneously started on your walks outside. So,
it is, and I have to give credit here to the playwright August Wilson, because I always think of the fact that all of his plays started with a line of dialogue, the first line of dialogue of his play. So that's how he started writing every play. And I think the same thing is true for me with the opening notes of some piece. And so that's how I look at it anyway.
Interesting. Well, I know, Josh, that there's a particular quotation from Wittgenstein that served as the particular inspiration for the work Aspects. So could you tell us about that quotation and what made it resonate for you?
This is all I'm allowed to talk about Wittgenstein, because if I go further, people's eyes glaze over, and if I do this with my sons, they just walk away. But
but they all know about Wittgenstein.
Now, I should tell you then that when I was in graduate school in English a couple of lifetimes ago, one of the faculty members there referred to Wittgenstein as the thinking man's breakfast cereal. So there you have it.
Well, Wittgenstein, for me, it's his, as I understand it, which is throughout my life, I've gotten little glimpses, like flying in the clouds, and then you see a little glint of sun here and there. That's my understanding of Wittgenstein. But a lot of his work meshes with my life experience. So I actually went back and looked at some of his later thinking on perspectives and what we call the seeing as phenomenon. We're all familiar, I think, with those optical illusions where...
Oh, like the vase and the two faces.
The two faces, or in his case, the duck rabbit, or those stairs that what happens. It's complicated, and I'm not sure what happens either. But what he noticed is that the thing never changes. It's only what we're looking at, how we're looking at it changes.
Yes.
And and I found the quote. I'm not sure exactly what the quote goes, but basically, what we do, we often don't notice the perspective that is the most common and normal in our lives. The old classic, we don't see the forest for the trees kind of thing. And in my writing work, where I often take up the topic of, for better or worse, love, that also happens frequently in literature when we say somebody has fallen in love with somebody else. It's not that it's not that somebody changes and all of a sudden the other is a different person that you fall in love with. No, it's your perspective on that other person and on yourself.
Of course,
so when we listen to music and words together, this is a very heuristic explanation, but I think of different parts of our brain. We listen to music or we listen to words. Words are more analytic, and Wittgenstein was in fact known as an analytic philosopher. Music is, people have said, it's a more direct line to the emotional, to the emotions. So we listen to them differently, and what I hope is when people are listening to a scene, they'll go back and forth and they will stop trying then to understand the words, but they'll see those perspectives change, and they'll realize that what's happening is not on stage, is what's happening in our perception.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, left brain, right brain, and they talk to one another.
Kind of, yes.
They kind of like flow through the corpus callosum, like create an open flow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And while Josh is often known as a playwright who rides the edge of experimental abstract theater, although his writing is always extremely poetic, but this performance, this series of 6 short scenes, each based on a different piece of music, is the most romantic I have ever known to produce. I mean, if you leave without a tear in your eyes, so you're not listening.
Well, I think we have some clips now, and I think that's a good kind of lead-in then to listening to the first clip. And let me just get it set up for us. We're going to be playing something by Beach, and if you could put up the photo of Pamela Batten Sachs, who's the actress for this.
Come, my love, sit beside me, and I will tell you all I know of the world. Take my hands. Gently turn them over. Run your fingers across the soft flesh of my palms, which reflect and enfold the earth's harsh elements.
Well, tell us a little bit about what people were just listening to.
Okay, first let me say that I want to give a lot of credit and love to Pam and all of our cast. Pam and I worked together to record many of these scenes as a part of my process of getting the syncing right and things like that. The music is by Amy Beach, and we could do a whole hour-long program on Amy Beach alone. One of the great American 20th century composers, Boston composer, just a marvelous musician. And I can't go into it, but for anybody listening here, find music by Amy Beach. You will be absolutely amazed. The words actually are taken from a previous play I wrote, as some of these scenes are. This one was from a play I wrote called Sityatki. It was for a commission about 10 years ago, based on a Hopi Indian myth or legend about a race between Coyote Boy and Swallow Boy, et cetera, et cetera. This was a monologue that I took from there, fixed it up a little bit, and inserted it in the beach. And it when I first tried it, that again, it came to me. I thought, well, this would work with this, and it does. I think. Pam starts with an accompanied line. It's whatever. Come, my love. I should come up with glasses.
Sit
beside me, and I will tell you all I know of the world. And then the music starts. That's one of the parts of the process that I can use to have different entrances and exits, or entrances mostly.
Okay. Well, terrific. It's just such an intriguing kind of process and different from what we're used to. Well, let's listen to another clip, shall we?
Sure.
Okay. Let me get this set up. So this will be Beethoven. And Maeve, could you put up the photo of Kimberly Holiday while we listen to the Beethoven?
To read through the strangest modern music. At the time, I had a small apartment, and in the sitting room sat my piano, purchased at an estate sale for $175. It had keys of true ivory, and because it was a Steinway, it sang at times like a god. Every day for many years, I made love to my piano. I imagined the greats seated on the piano bench in the little sitting room, the showman Rubinstein, the grandfatherly Horowitz, monster Rachmaninoff. the dandy Liszt, the pathetic Chopin, and of course, Beethoven. One day, I received a call from a young man.
Tell us about what we've just been listening to.
Yeah. First of all, again, Kim Holiday. Any of you who are fans or familiar with the Newburyport theater scene know that Kim is just an amazing actor and a good friend. And Kim and Pam Battensacks and I collaborated on the piece that this originally came from. This was actually lifted almost entirely from a full-length play that I wrote some years ago. I don't know how many. About late Beethoven, based on a biography of Beethoven written by our good friend and best man at our wedding, Jan Swafford. The full-length play was called The Wild Moon of Rancho Cucamonga. And I could tell you the story of how that came to be, but it's too long.
It's a real place.
You can come back.
We'll do that later. And in this particular case, this is unlike Pam's clip that we heard before. This is a story. Mm-hmm. It's a story about a young woman who took a job accompanying a violinist in a little concert in a local church in the middle of winter. Mm. And it has a lot to do with the piano because, in fact, many of these because piano is like the central object of my life. It's I love this piece. I truly love it, but it's really a story. Mm-hmm. The music itself is this Beethoven's G major violin sonata, his last violin sonata, Opus 96, and it's so simple and beautiful. You realize that only a master at the end of his life could have managed this, to write this thing. It's a delight to listen to alone, and I think that Kim has figured out how to put it together with this story in ways that I love. So.
Well, that's interesting, and it's clear already just from the first two movements we've heard brief excerpts from that they all contrast with one another as well. They're different in texture, tone, style, and emotion.
That's true. Some are stories. Some are not stories, but simply, I don't know, I call them poetry or whatever. Sally's, we don't have a clip from Sally's because I don't have a recording of it, but Sally's is actually kind of, I would call it as a lament. Does that make sense?
Lament,
a lament, yes, on how love lives and then dies without anybody ever noticing. And so that's like slightly different. One of the other stories is being done by Leslie Pasternak, and that's kind of a story about a concert pianist. And the other story is given by Josh Paradis, and it's a story, I guess.
Oh my gosh, it's the most romantic of all of these romantic.
Well, we have that clip. Why don't we play that clip next?
That would be perfect.
And this is Brahms. And May, if you could show the picture of Josh.
If I take Elm Street south to the edge of town, I pass an antique shop. The owner has placed dozens of old dolls in the window. They watch as I go by, glass eyes and porcelain heads, confident I will not disturb their wary serenity. At 1.6.
So, you were starting to say some things about this, and before we played the clip. So
yeah, this is it's not a retelling. It's a sort of a retelling of the Orpheus myth, a bit. This Brahms piece is very familiar to anybody who studied the piano or who is a 19th century classical music person. It's very well known, very beautiful, and Josh is the only male voice out of the six, I liked how that works. I would have been okay if I had 6 women's voices. I generally write for women characters. I'm not that good at writing for male characters, strangely. But in this case, I think it works out great. And Josh brings an entirely... Well, all the actors bring entirely different, not only voice, when I say voices, perspectives on acting. So I think Sally can probably speak more to that. I'm depending on them because all of them are really, really smart theater artists and really professional in the best sense of the word.
Well, that seems like a great opening then for Sally. So Sally, talk to us about this role as an actor in Aspects. It's very distinctive, as Josh and Penny have also been describing how it's different from other works, but builds upon a long tradition. So tell us about, in terms of your acting experience, how is it distinct for you, the particular kind of role, if that's the right word even, that you play in Aspects?
For sure, it's a turn for me, a delightful turn. I will do anything that Josh hands to me.
Get that in writing, Josh.
Truly.
So when he first approached all of us, and I okay, this is interesting, as everything you do, Josh. And I speaking to what Penny was talking about, that the music is a character. I don't know that I relayed this to you, Josh, but when he sent the script, and I'm looking at my monologue, and I'm going through it and becoming familiar with it, and then when we got together for the first time, and Josh is playing the music that goes along with my monologue, it was like, wow, okay, I don't want to say it changed, it enriched what I was saying, and yes, it's like a character. And every time, I think this happens with all scripts, but especially with this, it's constantly finding new things in it, and what she's lamenting. And I think, I don't know that if I was 30, 40 years younger, it would be as rich to me as it is now.
Interesting.
And it's been a wonderful process.
It's interesting. If I understand what you're saying, Sally, the music is something that, as an actor, you kind of have an ongoing dialogue with, that kind of enriches and deepens and informs the words that you're saying.
Absolutely.
And so, and I imagine, is that a little different every time then you rehearse and practice?
Absolutely.
Because,
and I don't know if I'm giving too much away, but I feel like there's this one wonderful juxtaposition between the tone of the music and the words that are written, because I feel in my character that she is, it's the everyday, she's in an everyday situation, very familiar, and the music is very beautiful and lilting, and there are sad moments, and so it contrasts to that, and I think brings out the words, the text, in a really wonderful way. Beautiful.
Well, that is very intriguing. So thank you for that. It's really interesting. So Penny, how have you been involved in the production?
Well, I'm a historian by academic background, and so I always see the historic lineage of everything that Josh does. And I think in any artist, when you're involved in the production of art, you know, time stops and you're in your own head, and it's hard to step back to see exactly what you've done. So I'm never aware of Josh when he's writing. I have absolutely no part in his creative process. In fact, I don't even know when he's writing. I'm downstairs teaching, and he's upstairs doing his day job. And then one time at dinner comes, and it's like, oh, I've got this new play or this new scene or whatever, and then I'll look at it, and then I can put it in a context, and then just, oh yeah, I guess that's what's going on.
Basically,
Interesting,
I need
yeah.
Penny, one of the people around me, to tell me what I've written. Because I generally have no idea.
Well, how useful, to be able to have the context.
Very. And may I say, that is a traditional role. It's called the dramaturg. And playwrights.
It's a great word.
Dramaturg. It is. I love that word. And it's a traditional role in the theater world, and it's an essential role. Without a dramaturg, nothing can be considered in perspective.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Penny's my interpretive dramaturg, because she can express it in ways that if I were to try to do that, people, again, like my sons, their eyes would glaze over and they would walk away. So.
But there's also something, bouncing off what Sally said, is in my teaching studio, I've worked with a lot with silent movies and music. So they're putting the music together to help illuminate or expose what's going on in the movie without words. But there's this process of sometimes, if it's a love scene, you're going to, play romantic music, but sometimes you want to do the opposite because it's the contrast that brings out the most. And that occurs in Sally's everyday folding laundry scene with this lush, beautiful music.
Yeah, Sally's actually monologue came from a comedy I wrote.
Oh.
And now by placing it with a shocking musical work that I've known since college, the cello sonata by Zoltan Kodály.
Okay.
It becomes something totally different.
Absolutely. Well, that's reminiscent of the Wittgenstein quote about the aspects of things are hidden by the familiarity of everyday
Yes,
life.
exactly.
And so hidden beneath folding the laundry, who knows what you're going to find if you dip into it.
Truly.
And also what you're talking about is you create the historical context that kind of places the work within. You're participating in an evolution of the form then, or creating new forms, so it's all very exciting. Well, I was wanted to ask about the venue that you've chosen for this, Brown Chapel, the chapel at the cemetery, Oak Hill Cemetery. And because I've been to the Chamber Music Festival, does night music concerts there, and it's very evocative.
To say the least.
Because you're in the chapel, and anyway, they do seating in the round there. I'm not sure. For people who haven't been there, I'm curious about what made you choose this particular chapel, and since people listening or watching may not have been there, could you describe some aspects of it that made it seem like a good choice for this?
Well, first of all, I have to say that for all of us, venue availability in the Newburyport area is always an issue. There aren't many. They come and go. We had the Actors Studio in the Tannery. That's now gone, and now it's sort of reemerged again up in Amesbury, or Salisbury. And the Firehouse is the Firehouse, and they have their own thing going.
Yeah, they're booked constantly.
And they're come and gone. Other venues, Theater in the Open uses the park often.
Yeah.
So actually getting a venue is one thing, and then Penny had for her students her Halloween recital in the
cemetery.
Why not?
A little bit of programming genius, yes. And
I said you were a creative Penny.
So, and I had not been inside before. I don't believe I had. And so it's a remarkable building. I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying it's a bit the worse for wear on the inside.
Yeah, some of the best places in Newburyport are.
Right. Exactly. It makes me think again of of Mendelssohn wrote his Scottish Symphony, supposedly among the ruins of the castle in Edinburgh, because it was the ruination of it that inspired him. I don't.
So it's a very romantic setting
Right.
Context
for
in it.
19th century
Right.
Yeah.
music.
And
but it's cool. It's all granite. It's very cool inside.
it's amazing.
Meaning cool in temperature in this
It's
heat wave
amazing.
that we're under.
And let me just give credit to Glee Woodworth, the manager,
yes.
who's
Yeah.
just an
Yeah.
incredibly important person in Newburyport, I think,
Oh,
especially with her
absolutely.
latest work with
Absolutely.
slave graves.
Yes.
So she's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And it's all worked out great. With the only exception is they don't have a bathroom. So for the first time in my life, first time event, I got to rent a bathroom.
Well, you wouldn't want to finish life without having done that.
I absolutely agree. So that's the case.
And it's a noble role.
Completely, yes.
And Josh let me know that when you're on call waiting, they play Mozart, who's known for his scatological humor. So
You know, some things are just perfect, aren't they?
Yeah, the universe makes it that way. So,
Well, I also wanted to ask you about, you have made this performance, pay whatever you want. People must register, but I wanted to ask you what led you to make this decision. To, folks, come, pay whatever you want or not pay whatever you want.
Yeah.
What made you make that
well,
decision?
the basics of this is that as a producer, I'm just myself, and actually the basis was for ethical reasons. I have 6 pieces of recorded music I'm playing that I'm really have not received any particular rights to, and it's just for all of us. I think it's not a good idea to try to make a profit off of it. I mean, ASCAP people or BMI people don't live in Newburyport, and they're not policing any of this. So it's not like that. But I just felt really strongly that if people want to give so we can help defray costs or whatever, that's fine. But the artists who created this music, I mean, they don't care and they don't need whatever money we would provide, but it's just wrong. It's not right.
Okay.
And so I think that's really the basis of it. And also, there's a lot of theater in town, even now, and people, what do they say? Their entertainment dollar, it's precious.
Well, yeah, good way to put it.
Right. And my interest is in getting the work up and working with my fabulous actors, and giving the audience, most of whom actually are my friends, the opportunity to be part of this. And so those are the kind of the reasons why I did that.
Well, those make perfect sense. And
because
also
there are
makes you-
production costs, and you hope to give something to your actors.
I do,
Yeah.
and I have to pay for the toilet too. So, but yeah, actors should be paid.
Yeah,
Actors
absolutely.
should be, even if it's just,
Absolutely.
I don't want to say token, but even if it's like one of our actresses, Shannon Muse, she lives in Manchester, New Hampshire. So just gasoline alone, it should be done. So I'm doing my best to do that.
Everything you say makes perfect sense, Josh. So, well, it sounds very innovative, very exciting, and very creative. So, one last thing I'd like to ask you, each of you, is what are you, as an individual, most excited about or most looking forward to about the performances this weekend?
Music.
Ah, okay.
Getting to tell the story vis-a-vis the music.
Excellent. Great. How about?
I love things that blur the lines of genre.
Yeah. Okay.
And in today's world where the boundaries can sometimes be argued over with, a great political expense, I love in the arts that we can break those genres down between classical and jazz and popular and spoken word and music and poetry and theater. Josh, in the theater world, when he sends his work out for contests and things, is often accused of being too much of a poet. And
Is
then-
that a thing?
I guess.
Poets have their own symposia and forum, and he's too theatrical.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay, so you left your silo.
Exactly. Exactly.
our world is too silent.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Left brain, right brain, mixing it all up again. Gosh.
I know. I'm a terror.
Yeah, well, it's just, and when I was reading about the description, I thought, well, it's not exactly like a musical, like Oklahoma, and it's not exactly a concert like the Chamber Music Festival, and it's not exactly a play like Death of a Salesman, but this is by design. So
Exactly.
people are just going to have to deal.
Sorry.
And what about you, Josh, as the author and impetus of all this?
The best thing for me is that this I want to be a missionary for this music. I want to bring it to my friends and my acquaintances and people who may not be familiar with it or may not understand that this has been our life, but my life too has been classical music. My family, we're all classical musicians. It's just how happens this is 19th century and early 20th century romantic music. It could be anything else. It could be folk music or musical comedy or Brazilian jazz or whatever it is. People so often forget to listen. And I want to bring this to my friends and people I know in the audience. I want to be there, and when the audience says, "Holy mackerel, that's something! That piece is something! That music is something!"
This music is often a byproduct of, or just setting, calming people down before a show starts or on the telephone.
Right,
this is meant to be listened to.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important for me.
Yeah, excellent. Well, people can pay what they want, but they need to register. And so, and as we were talking before, if you're interested in going and registering, act quickly, but tell people how they can register.
Well, there is a website that my friend and my actor Leslie Pasternak is administering for us. She's has her own organization called Lemon Punch Theater. I can't give the website because if I read it off, nobody would figure it out anyway.
No, but you can Google Lemon Punch Theater.
You absolutely can. Also, contact me by phone or best by email or text, and I will take care of it. Sooner is better. As I said, I think we're almost at capacity Saturday night. We're considering calling that sold out. Still seats available for Sunday.
Okay.
So sooner is better. And really, if you know Penny, contact Penny. If you know Sally, contact Sally.
All right.
We'll get the word, and we'll get you. We'll get you in.
So it's J.Faigen, Faigen @comcast.net.
Excellent. So that's this coming weekend, Saturday and Sunday, June 22nd and 23rd, 8 p.m. at the Brown Chapel at Oak Hill Cemetery. Well, I'm glad I registered already because I'm super intrigued. And I thank all three of you for coming and having such a fascinating conversation about everything, really. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been a real treat, and you do such a great job here. I've known for all the years that Penny's been coming in and working with you on this program. So thank you.
You're very, very welcome. It's totally my pleasure. So thank you all very much. And I'm very much looking forward. I'm glad I got my tickets for Saturday already. So thank you very much. Take care now. That's it for today, everybody. Please join us again next Thursday at 9 for the morning show. Till then, everybody, be well.